Commander Vex 9 couldn't help but sneer as the small human approached the security checkpoint. After 3 rotations serving on Nexus Station, he thought he'd seen every type of human that crawled through the docking bays. This one looked particularly unremarkable. Average height, unremarkable clothing, and most amusing of all, a simple civilian identification badge clipped to her jacket. "Next!" Vex barked, his forearms gesturing impatiently at the queue. The human stepped forward with an easy confidence that immediately irritated him. Her name tag read Dr. Maya Delacroix, and she carried herself like someone who belonged here. Which was ridiculous, considering she was obviously just another tourist or low-level researcher. "Purpose of visit?" Vex asked, not bothering to look up from his scanner. "Diplomatic consultation," Maya replied calmly, sliding her credentials across the counter. Vex's laugh erupted like a bark. "Diplomatic?" He held up her civilian badge, waving it in the air for his fellow guards to see. "Hey, Krill! Look at this. This little human thinks she's diplomatic material." Krill, a hulking Thorian with tusks that jutted from his lower jaw, lumbered over to see what was so amusing. "What's the joke, Vex?" "This tiny creature," Vex continued, thoroughly enjoying himself, "wants access to the diplomatic quarters. With a civilian badge." He turned the badge over, examining it like it was some curious artifact. "I've seen more impressive credentials on cafeteria workers." Maya remained perfectly still, her expression neutral. She didn't fidget, didn't argue, didn't even seem offended. This lack of reaction only fueled Vex's amusement. "Tell you what, little human," Vex said, leaning forward on his 4 elbows. "Why don't you run along to the tourist section? I'm sure there's a nice gift shop where you can buy some authentic alien souvenirs to show your friends back home." "I'll wait," Maya said simply. "Wait for what?" Vex snorted. "For your diplomatic immunity to magically appear? For someone to upgrade your clearance level? Face it, sweetheart, you're out of your league here." That's when the atmosphere in the security bay shifted. A presence entered the area that made even Vex's casual arrogance falter. The temperature seemed to drop several degrees, and conversations throughout the checkpoint died to whispers. Ambassador Zara-Vel-Thorne glided into view, her crystalline ethereal form catching and refracting the station's lights in mesmerizing patterns. As the senior ethereal diplomat on Nexus Station, she commanded respect from every species in the galaxy. Her very presence was enough to make hardened military officers straighten their spines and check their uniforms. She moved with the fluid grace of her people, each step deliberate and measured. But what caught everyone's attention wasn't her imposing 7-foot frame, or her species' legendary telepathic abilities. It was the way she was heading directly toward their checkpoint. Vex suddenly found himself standing straighter, his earlier confidence evaporating like moisture in a vacuum. "Ambassador," he stammered, "how may we assist you today?" Zara-Vel-Thorne didn't acknowledge him. Instead, she approached Maya Delacroix and, to the absolute shock of everyone present, performed the traditional ethereal bow of deep respect. Her form shimmered as she lowered her head, a gesture reserved for the highest dignitaries and most honored guests. "Dr. Delacroix," the ambassador's voice resonated with harmonics that spoke of genuine reverence, "I apologize for any delay. Your shuttle was tracked, arriving 20 minutes ago. But when you didn't appear at the diplomatic reception area, I became concerned." Maya smiled for the first time since entering the checkpoint. "No apology necessary, Ambassador Thorne. I seem to have encountered a minor administrative delay." Vex felt his stomach drop through the deck plating. The casual way she addressed one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy, the familiar shortening of the ambassador's name, the complete lack of intimidation in her voice, It all pointed to something he was beginning to realize with growing horror. Administrative delay? The ambassador's tone carried notes that could have frozen plasma. She turned toward Vex, and he felt the full weight of an ethereal's attention settle on him like a gravitational field. Perhaps you could explain, Commander, why Dr. Delacroix was not immediately escorted to the diplomatic sector. The badge. Vex's words tumbled over each other as his brain tried to process the rapidly deteriorating situation. The badge? Ambassador Thorne examined Maya's civilian identification with the same intensity Vex had shown earlier, but with entirely different implications. Ah, I see. You were concerned about proper credentials. Maya reached into her jacket and withdrew a second badge. This one was different, sleek, with holographic elements that shifted and flowed. Even from a distance, Vex could see the diplomatic seals and security clearances that marked it as belonging to someone with authority far beyond his own. I prefer to wear the civilian badge when possible, Maya explained to the ambassador, though her words were clearly intended for Vex's benefit. It helps me gauge how people truly behave when they think no one important is watching. The ambassador's form brightened with what Vex had learned to recognize as ethereal amusement. How delightfully practical. And what did you observe during this particular experiment? The usual, Maya replied with a shrug. Some people are professional regardless of who they're dealing with. Others, she glanced meaningfully at Vex. Others reveal their true character quite quickly. Krill had backed away from the checkpoint entirely, suddenly finding urgent business elsewhere in the security bay. Other guards were studiously avoiding eye contact, hoping to escape whatever disciplinary meteor was about to impact their workplace. Vex finally found his voice, though it came out as more of a croak. Dr. Delacroix, I had no idea. Of course you didn't, Maya interrupted, her tone remaining conversational but carrying an edge that made Vex's skin crawl. That was rather the point. You had no idea who I was, what I might be capable of, or what authority I might possess. And based on that ignorance, you chose to be dismissive, condescending, and frankly, rude. The ambassador moved closer to Vex, her presence now overwhelming. Commander, are you familiar with Dr. Delacroix's work? Vex shook his head mutely. Dr. Maya Delacroix, the ambassador continued, her voice taking on the cadence of someone delivering a lecture, is the primary architect of the Terran Galactic Accords. She personally negotiated the peace treaties that ended the Centauri conflicts. She's been instrumental in establishing trade agreements that have brought prosperity to over 400 worlds. Each word hit Vex like a physical blow. He felt his career prospects evaporating in real time. She's also, the ambassador added with particular emphasis, the personal friend and advisor to the Galactic Council's chairman. When she speaks, beings with the power to reshape star systems listen carefully. Maya held up a hand. I think he understands, Ambassador. Don't you, Commander? Vex nodded frantically, his earlier smugness completely replaced by the cold sweat of professional terror. The question now, Maya continued, is what we do about this situation. You see, Commander, I don't particularly care about personal slights. I've been insulted by experts across the galaxy. But what concerns me is the pattern of behavior you've displayed. She began counting on her fingers, each point delivered with calm precision. First, you made assumptions based on appearance. Second, you treated someone you perceived as powerless with casual disrespect. Third, you displayed that disrespect publicly, encouraging others to share in your mockery. Fourth, you denied access to facilities without proper investigation of credentials. Vex realized he was holding his breath. Any one of these behaviors, Maya concluded, suggests poor judgment. All four together suggest someone who shouldn't be in a position of authority over others, particularly in a role that requires interaction with diverse species and cultures. The ambassador's form pulsed with approval. Dr. Delacroix raises valid concerns about station security protocols. However, Maya continued, and Vex caught the slightest hint of hope in that word, everyone deserves a chance to learn from their mistakes. Commander, I'm going to give you a choice. She stepped closer, and despite being nearly 2 feet shorter than him, somehow managed to make Vex feel like the smaller person in the conversation. Option 1. I file a formal complaint with station administration. Given my position and the diplomatic implications, this would likely result in your immediate reassignment to a position where your judgment errors couldn't impact interstellar relations, probably somewhere in waste management. Vex's heart sank. Option 2. You use this as a learning experience. You apologize genuinely, not just to me, but to every person you've treated poorly based on assumptions. You reassess your approach to your duties. You remember that every being who passes through this checkpoint deserves basic courtesy and respect, regardless of their apparent status or authority. Vex started, then stopped, realizing this might be his only chance to salvage his career. I choose option 2, Dr. Delacroix, and I'm deeply sorry for my behavior. You're right, all of it. The assumptions, the disrespect, the mockery. It was unprofessional and wrong. Better, Maya nodded. Now, can you tell me why it was wrong? Vex thought carefully before answering. Because everyone deserves to be treated with dignity, regardless of how important they appear to be. Because my job is to provide security, not to judge or demean people. Because... He paused, a realization dawning. Because if I treat people poorly when I think it doesn't matter, it reveals who I really am inside. For the first time since the conversation began, Maya smiled genuinely. Now you're getting it. Character isn't what you do when people are watching, Commander. It's what you do when you think no one important will ever know. The ambassador observed this exchange with what appeared to be satisfaction. Dr. Delacroix, shall we proceed to the diplomatic sector? The council members are eager to begin the session. Of course, Maya replied, then turned back to Vex one final time. Commander, I hope our next interaction will be more pleasant for both of us. As they walked away, Vex heard the ambassador ask, How do you always remain so patient with such behavior? Maya's laugh carried back across the security bay, warm and genuine. 3 years of dealing with Rigelian trade delegates, Ambassador. After that, everything else seems manageable. Vex stood at his checkpoint, watching 2 of the most powerful beings in the galaxy disappear around the corner, engaged in casual conversation, like old friends, which, he realized, they probably were. Krill cautiously approached from where he'd been hiding behind a cargo scanner. So, that went well. Shut up, Krill. Think she'll remember this the next time she comes through? Vex looked down at the civilian badge Maya had left behind, apparently by accident. Except, looking at it now, he suspected nothing Dr. Maya Delacroix did was ever really by accident. Yeah, he said quietly. I think she'll remember. The rest of his shift passed in uncomfortable reflection. Every person who approached his checkpoint received professional courtesy and proper attention to their credentials. Word of the incident had spread quickly through the security department, and Vex found himself the recipient of both sympathy and barely contained amusement from his colleagues. But it was Captain Torres, his immediate supervisor, who delivered the most sobering perspective when she arrived for the shift change briefing. "Vex," she said, settling her bulk into the supervisor's chair, "do you have any idea how close you came to ending your career today?" "Pretty close, I'm guessing." "Dr. Maya Delacroix doesn't just advise the Galactic Council," Torres explained. "She helped create the position classification system we all work under. The professional standards we're evaluated by? She wrote half of them. The diplomatic protocols that govern how we interact with different species? Her work." Vex felt sick. "But here's the thing," Torres continued. "She could have destroyed you with a single communication to my supervisor. Instead, she chose to give you a lesson in professional conduct. Do you understand what that means? That she's generous? That she believes you can do better. Dr. Delacroix doesn't waste time on people she considers hopeless. The fact that she bothered to correct your behavior instead of simply removing you from the equation suggests she saw something worth saving." Torres stood up, gathering her reports. "Don't make her regret that decision, Commander. Because next time, there won't be a second option." As his supervisor left, Vex found himself alone with his thoughts and the memory of his spectacular failure in judgment. But more than embarrassment or fear for his career, he felt something unexpected: gratitude. Dr. Maya Delacroix had given him something more valuable than job security. She'd given him a mirror to see himself clearly, and the opportunity to become someone better. The civilian badge lay on his desk, a small piece of plastic and metal that had triggered the most important lesson of his professional life. Tomorrow, he decided, he would find a way to return it. And maybe, just maybe, he would thank her for the gift of perspective she'd given him. After all, character wasn't just what you did when important people were watching. It was what you chose to become when no one expected you to change. 3 days had passed since the incident, and Vex 9 was beginning to think the worst was behind him. He'd been more courteous to every visitor, double-checked credentials without making assumptions, and even helped an elderly Centaurian locate the medical bay. Maybe, just maybe, he could move past his monumental error in judgment. That optimism shattered when Station Commander Admiral Helena Cross requested his presence in her office. Immediately. The walk to the command level felt like a death march. Vex had never met the human admiral personally, but her reputation preceded her like a shockwave. Cross had earned her position through 30 years of stellar service, surviving the Void Wars and negotiating the Titan mining accords. She wasn't known for tolerance of incompetence. The Admiral's office was spartanly decorated, filled with commendations and images from various campaigns. Cross herself sat behind a massive desk, her steel-gray hair pulled back severely, her pale blue eyes studying a report with the intensity of someone dissecting enemy battle plans. "Commander Vex 9, she said without looking up. "Sit." He sat, trying to keep his 4 arms from fidgeting. "Do you know what this is?" Cross finally looked up, holding a datapad between them like evidence in a criminal trial. "A report, Admiral." "A very detailed report about your interaction with Dr. Maya Delacroix 3 days ago. Written by Ambassador Zara-Vel-Thorne, forwarded through diplomatic channels, and somehow landing on my desk with a priority flag that suggests galactic importance." Vex's stomachs churned. "Admiral, I can explain." "Oh, I'm sure you can." Cross set the pad down with deliberate precision. "But first, let me share some information you might find illuminating. Tell me, Commander, what do you know about human memory?" The question seemed unrelated to his impending doom, but Vex answered anyway. Humans have good recall capabilities. Better than some species, not as advanced as others. Cross smiled, and it wasn't a pleasant expression. Accurate, but incomplete. You see, Commander, humans don't just remember events. We remember emotions, contexts, the exact feeling of being dismissed, disrespected, or humiliated. And we share those memories. She stood up, moving to the large viewport that showed the stars beyond Nexus Station. Dr. Delacroix didn't just file a complaint, Commander. She did something far more interesting. She told a story. A story, Admiral? About a security officer who judged a book by its cover. About assumptions and arrogance. About the difference between authority and respect. It's already circulating through diplomatic circles, Commander. Do you know what they're calling it? Vex shook his head, though he suspected he wouldn't like the answer. The Civilian Badge Incident. It's become a case study in professional conduct seminars across 7 sectors. Congratulations, Commander. You're famous. The room felt like it was spinning. Admiral, But here's the truly fascinating part, Cross continued, ignoring his distress. The story doesn't paint you as a villain. Dr. Delacroix made sure to emphasize your willingness to learn, your genuine apology, your potential for growth. She turned your humiliation into a teaching moment about redemption. Relief flooded through Vex's system, quickly followed by confusion. Then why am I here, Admiral? Cross turned back to face him, her expression unreadable. Because Dr. Delacroix requested a meeting. With both of us. Today. In about 20 minutes. She's coming back? Oh, she never left, Commander. Dr. Delacroix has been on Nexus Station for 3 days, conducting negotiations that will reshape trade agreements for the next decade. Meetings with species representatives you've probably never heard of, discussing treaties that will affect billions of lives. The Admiral returned to her desk, pulling up holographic displays that showed complex diplomatic schedules and trade route projections. While you were learning to be more polite to visitors, Cross said, Dr. Delacroix was preventing a potential war between the hegemony worlds and the Free Trade Coalition. Apparently, there was a dispute over shipping rights in the Kepler corridor that was escalating toward military action. Vex felt smaller with each revelation. She also managed to negotiate a breakthrough in the Synthetic Intelligence Rights Conference, established new protocols for first contact situations, and somehow found time to mediate a cultural dispute between the Aquatic Confederation and the Silicon-based collective. Cross paused, letting the magnitude sink in. All while using your security checkpoint incident as an example of how different species can overcome initial misunderstandings through patience and communication. A chime indicated someone at the door. That'll be her now, Cross said. Enter. Dr. Maya Delacroix walked in, looking exactly as unremarkable as she had 3 days ago. She still wore simple clothing, still carried herself with that easy confidence that had so irritated Vex initially. But now he saw it differently. Not arrogance, but the quiet assurance of someone who had nothing to prove, because her accomplishments spoke louder than any display of authority. Admiral Cross, Commander Vex, Maya nodded to each of them. Thank you for making time in your schedules. Dr. Delacroix, the Admiral stood. Please, have a seat. I was just bringing the Commander up to speed on your recent activities. Maya settled into a chair with fluid grace. I hope I haven't caused too much disruption to station operations with my extended stay. On the contrary, Cross replied, your presence has been educational for many of our personnel. Maya's smile suggested she caught the subtle emphasis. Speaking of education, I wanted to follow up on our previous conversation, Commander. Vex straightened. Yes, Dr. Delacroix? I've been observing the security checkpoint over the past few days. Not directly. I wouldn't want to make your staff nervous, but through routine monitoring systems. I'm pleased to report a noticeable improvement in professional courtesy and thoroughness. Thank you, Dr. Delacroix. I've been working to apply the lessons from our encounter. Good, but I'm not here just to provide performance feedback. Maya leaned forward slightly. I have a proposition for you, Commander. Vex glanced at Admiral Cross, who seemed as curious as he was. As you may know, Maya continued, I'm establishing a new training program for diplomatic security personnel. Officers who will work directly with visiting dignitaries, first contact, teams, and sensitive negotiations. It's demanding work that requires exceptional judgment, cultural sensitivity, and the ability to remain professional under pressure. It sounds challenging, Vex managed. It is. Which is why I need people who have demonstrated the capacity to learn from their mistakes, acknowledge their biases, and grow beyond their initial limitations. The implication hit Vex like a meteor. You're offering me a position? I'm offering you an opportunity, Maya corrected. The training is intensive. 6 months of coursework covering xenopsychology, diplomatic protocol, threat assessment, and cultural dynamics. The failure rate is approximately 60%. Those who complete it successfully become part of an elite unit that operates across multiple sectors. Admiral Cross looked intrigued. This would be a significant career advancement for Commander Vex. If he's interested and willing to put in the work, Maya replied, but I should mention, this isn't charity. I don't believe in giving people opportunities they haven't earned. Commander Vex demonstrated something important during our first encounter. What was that? Vex asked. Genuine remorse and immediate behavioral change. Do you know how rare that is? Most beings, when confronted with their mistakes, become defensive. They make excuses, blame circumstances, or simply dig deeper into their original position. You did none of those things. Maya stood, moving to the viewport where she gazed out at the stars. I've spent decades working with diplomatic personnel from hundreds of species. I can usually predict how someone will respond to correction within minutes of meeting them. You surprised me, Commander. How so? You listened. You accepted responsibility. You changed your behavior immediately, and maintained that change even when you thought no one important was watching anymore. That kind of character flexibility is exactly what diplomatic security requires. Vex felt a strange mixture of pride and uncertainty. What would this position involve exactly? Protecting beings who can reshape civilizations with a word, ensuring the safety of negotiations that affect trillions of lives, working in environments where a single cultural misunderstanding could trigger interstellar incidents. Maya turned back to face him. And doing all of this while maintaining the kind of professional demeanor and sound judgment that you've been developing over the past 3 days. The weight of the offer settled over him. This was beyond anything he'd ever imagined for his career. There's one more thing, Maya added. The position requires relocating to Earth for the training period, then assignments throughout known space. You'd be leaving Nexus Station, probably permanently. Admiral Cross spoke up. Commander, this is your decision, but I want you to know that such an opportunity is extraordinary. Dr. Delacroix's security teams are legendary in military circles. Vex looked between the two humans, trying to process the magnitude of what was being offered. 3 days ago, he'd been a minor security officer making jokes about civilian badges. Now, one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy, was offering him a chance to join an elite unit. "May I ask," he said carefully, "why me? Surely there are more qualified candidates." Maya's laugh was warm and genuine. "Commander, do you think competence is rare in the galaxy? Technical skill? Physical capability? Those things are common. What's rare is wisdom, the kind that comes from making mistakes, learning from them, and becoming better." She returned to her seat. "I've worked with countless perfect officers, beings who never made errors because they never took risks or made decisions. They're reliable, but limited. The best security personnel I've ever known all had one thing in common. They'd all failed spectacularly at something important, learned from it, and emerged stronger. So my humiliation was actually useful?" "Your response to humiliation was useful," Maya corrected. "Anyone can be embarrassed. Not everyone can transform embarrassment into growth." Admiral Cross looked at Vex expectantly. "What's your answer, Commander?" Vex thought about the past 3 days, the reflection, the changed behavior, the gradual understanding of how much he'd been limiting himself through assumptions and prejudices. Then he thought about the opportunity being offered, a chance to work at the highest levels of galactic diplomacy, to be part of something truly important. "Dr. Delacroix," he said finally, "I accept your offer. When do I start?" "Immediately. There's a transport leaving for Earth in 6 hours. Your replacement has already been assigned to Nexus Station." Maya smiled. "I took the liberty of assuming you'd say yes. You were that confident?" "Commander, I've spent 3 days watching you prove that you're exactly the kind of person this job requires. Someone who can be trusted to do the right thing even when no one's checking up on them." As they stood to leave, Admiral Cross extended her hand to Vex. "Congratulations, former Commander. And good luck. You're representing Nexus Station now." "Thank you, Admiral. I won't disappoint you." "See that you don't." "And Vex?" Cross smiled. "Try not to judge any more books by their covers." Walking through the corridors of Nexus Station for what might be the last time, Vex reflected on the extraordinary chain of events that had brought him here. A moment of arrogance had nearly destroyed his career, but it had also revealed possibilities he'd never imagined. "Dr. Delacroix," he said as they approached the departure bay, "can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Did you plan this? The civilian badge, the test, the job offer?" Maya considered the question carefully. "I planned to see how you'd react to someone you perceived as powerless. The rest, let's just say I believe in giving people the chance to surprise me." "You certainly did." As they reached the transport, Vex realized something that made him laugh out loud. "What's amusing?" Maya asked. 3 days ago, I thought I was so important because I controlled who got through security. Now I'm about to become responsible for protecting the people who actually run the galaxy. The irony is overwhelming." "The best part," Maya said, boarding the transport, "is that you understand the irony. That awareness will serve you well in your new position." As Nexus Station fell away behind them, Vex looked forward to a future he could never have imagined. All because he'd learned the most important lesson of his life. True authority comes not from the power to diminish others, but from the wisdom to elevate them. And sometimes, the most profound changes in the universe begin with something as simple as a civilian badge and the choice to see beyond it. The transport jumped to hyperspace, carrying Commander Vex toward his new destiny, while behind them, Nexus Station continued its eternal dance among the stars, a little more professional, a little more respectful, and a little more aware that you never know who might be wearing that unassuming civilian badge.